I let you do because I don't know how to do. No.
Apresentação?
Apresentação, ok. Sì, dalla staff da tua. Perfetto.
You want to sit there?
Or do you want?
No.
That's okay here.
Bom, boa tarde. What for you?
So is there internet?
Yes.
Let's go.
Bom, boa tarde, né? Obrigado pela presença, né? A gente acabou marcando mais em cima da hora esse seminário, né? Em geral, na semana da Unpox, a gente deixa livre, mas como o Rodrigo Savazone, né, que estudou aqui na FEFELESH, e tem uma iniciativa muito interessante em Santos, que é o Laboratório do Comum, né? Laboratório Procomum. Então ele tem um vínculo de pesquisa e de outras atividades com o Giuseppe. E o Giuseppe estava em Montevidéu, ia passar por São Paulo, e aí tudo confluiu para a gente marcar então essa sessão aqui hoje, né? O Giuseppe Micciarelli, ele é professor da Universidade de Salerno, na Itália, né? Ele trabalha nas áreas de filosofia política, sociologia do direito, né? E Nápoles tem sido uma cidade muito interessante, né? Onde tem tido ele participa de um instituto que chama Instituto pela Imaginação Radical, que tem tido lidado com as ocupações, né? De uma forma, vamos dizer, criativa e um pouco distinta de outras cidades no mundo, né? Que ele vai explicar isso melhor. Ele participou muito do Asilo Filangieri, que foi uma instituição que era uma estratégia mais do que a gente poderia chamar de economia criativa, acabou não dando certo, e aí os trabalhadores da cultura ocuparam, e depois a prefeitura reconheceu a autonomia desse espaço, a legalidade da ocupação e também a Assembleia como espaço de decisões dessa ocupação, né? Então, e agradeço então também, eu já falei do Rodrigo, né, que fez esse contato. E então vamos ouvir agora o Giuseppe.
Thank you very much, and obviously it's a great honor to be here, and thank you to Jean, to Rodrigo, and to all of you. Just a few words to present myself. In another life, I was a lawyer. I am still, but I am not working now as a lawyer. I am a researcher in political philosophy and sociology of law. And my interests are on the rising of new institutions. New institutions are not only the institution that we are going to speak now. This is probably my main field when I speak about a new institution. So, institutions that are in the framework of participatory democracy, we can say that. Obviously, participatory democracy is another big word after we can speak about. But there are also other kind of new institutions that are rising, and there are neoliberal institutions. For example, I've worked on the free trade agreement that are now linking European Union and United States, Japan, and other countries. So it seems something that is very, very different. An international economic governance that I call free trade governance, and social movement, self-organization, urban commons. I hope at the end to explain why it's different, but probably one of the main issue of our times is that the institution that we know of representative democracy are changing and are rising other kind, in well and in bad. All right, let's start with a really simple thing, and sorry for the colleague that are here. I say just a few words about what commons are for the student, and because the word commons is becoming a buzzword in the political field, and also in the academic context is not so simple to understand what we are speaking about, because there are different authors that mean very different things with this word. So let's start, for example, from Hardin and Elinor Ostrom. You know that Gerhard Hardin wrote at the end of the 60s an important paper that is called The Tragedy of the Commons. And in synthesis, he said that this scenario, this pasto, how do you say pasto here? Pascolo. Pasto. Oh, right, this pasto. This pasto is with sheep. In reality, is the picture of the competition. Why? Really simple, because this pasto hasn't got borders. So there is the problem that everyone that work with sheep, the sheep world, say, all right, I want to take a sheep more, because I have the possibility to gain the profit from this action, and part that give a problem to the pastor, so the fact that there is a sheep more, is shared with everyone. So happens this, that is the tragedy of the commons. Everyone will take one more sheep, and at the end we will destroy the field. Obviously, the situation is a little bit more complex. We can answer that the problem may be is that in the Hardin idea, sheepward don't speak together. And so, if they don't speak together, they don't realize a common governance of the field. And the answer of Hardin was, all right, for this reason we need borders, we need property borders, we need private property, because if everyone has his portion of the field, he will try to conserve it and to give it to the people that work with him, and so to protect. So this is the position of Hardin. It was a very simplistic position, it's too simple, the idea of Hardin, clearly. And Elinor Ostrom criticizes, one of the main authors that criticize this idea, and she said, no, we can start to work and to see that all over the world there are different experiences of cooperation from grassroots of people that not with the state, not with the market, organize themselves in another way. And the framework of Elinor Ostrom is this one. This is not only of Elinor Ostrom framework. Very quickly, we can say that at the beginning she was speaking about common pool resources. Just think about the open field. That is the paradigm. And there are these two categories that are the feasible exclusion and the joint of use, that are able not only to explain what commons are, but what all kind of goods are. And so we have, for example, private goods that are in this framework with feasible exclusion and alternative use. This jacket, I can exclude you to use it, and I can wear it alone. We cannot wear together this. And for example, the public good, the air is a perfect public good, I cannot prevent Jean to smell air with me, and it's possible that we smell the same air together. So the common pool resource in this framework are resources that are difficult to exclude others. The open file is difficult to exclude someone to take the ship inside, and in the vision of Elinor Ostrom is also possible an alternative use and, let's say, a rivalry, a competition. So this is the framework of what commons for common pool resource for Ostrom are. What I work with is what we can say address as an urban open field. There are spaces like this one that I call emerging commons. That said, urban and rural space, such as building or agricultural fields, directly managed by a community, that in doing a community of people, that in doing so, they become the community of reference of the good. So, as you can see, these kind of commons are very different from the idea of the open file. And it's true. And now we are going to see why we speak about commons in this case. For someone, it's only a buzzword that we use because in the political claiming of the collective use of this space, common is a strong word. Obviously, there is always this part, because we are in the realm of politics, and in the realm of politics, as Ernesto Laclau can say, this can be also empty significance. Significante, ¿cómo se dice? Significante, all right. And but it's something more. So, in my experience, I've dealt with around 70 case studies, mainly contacted directly by commoners' organization to help solve community building and legal troubles. Because when we speak about buildings, as well as we speak about open fields and common resources, there is always the problem of, all right, how we govern and manage it and how we legally translate this governance. There are these two troubles. And many of these main urban commoning experiences start from an illegal action, such as an occupation, or they claim a special collective governance because they don't recognize themselves in the absolute sense of the dichotomy public-private management. And else, in around 30 initiatives, I was engaged as advisor by local institution, agency, or international networks with varying level of formality. For example, now I am president of a body that in the city of Naples is called the Permanent Observatory on Commons, Participatory Democracy and Fundamental Rights. That is a body of activists, scholars, not only from Naples, that are trying to give an obligatory advice to the city council when we speak about administrative acts that are on urban commons, participatory democracy, and something like that. After we can speak more, because also this is a new institution. It's not only a consultative body. I can explain more after. But let's turn back to the buildings like that. These are buildings from the city of Naples. And most of these experiences we are now speaking are located in spaces that were abandoned, underused, or neglected before. In Europe, where I developed the core of my research, very old buildings, former prisons, abandoned convents, barracks, brownfields, and other urban ruins are spectres haunting the metropolitan areas affected by another great transformation, paraphrasing Marx and Carpolani. So they become the perfect scenario either of the economic crisis or for a rebirth led by the growing of communitarian practices that use such empty space to do what is difficult to do usually in the between of the state and market. In most cases, we are speaking about public buildings, but there are also private ones, which are abandoned because of their huge size and bad condition. They were built in another epoch, with another idea of work, with another idea of balance of power between state and market, in another area of the capitalism. So they are very hard to be renovated. Paraphrasing Marc Auger, these are not non-places, but I call them ex-places, former places, in which with a process of civic revitalization have thrived theater, cinema, craft workshop, co-working spaces, and even mutual community center for education, medical care, and legal aid. Very, very different experience. And these are not only case studies, as I said before, but I can say also partner in crime, because a lot of time these kind of activities are very, very difficult to translate in the legal framework, because it's difficult to imagine how we can imagine these activities that are not only no-profit activities, are barrio activities, neighborhood activities, are solidarity activities, and they all belong to what we can simplify, is another simplification, let's say that, as the claim of the right to the city. All right, so these urban spaces can emerge as urban commons as an outcome of social practices. But this may appear to be in contrast with Ostrom theory and the framework that we saw before, obviously, because they seem to be more similar to what we call tool gods rather than common pool resource, because in fact it's not difficult. Let's return to the schema. It's not difficult to exclude potential beneficiaries. You just need a key to lock the door of such abandoned premises. It's not an open field. It's a building. So I can say to Jean very simply, no, Jean, you're not welcome in this space because it's a space that have this flag or have this idea of solidarity. The word solidarity can have many answers, right? So the structure of the good is not the structure of a common pool resource, but they can be common. Why? In my opinion, and also if we are oriented to the idea and the scholars that correctly say that there is a social production of the commons, if we have learned that exclusion can be the outcome of different kind of barriers, such as norm, tradition, and so on, thus also non-excludability can be the result of a political choice. And this is the commoning activity that is done in the space. So the fact that they are open to everyone, and after we will answer to this everyone, because also this is a simplification, is a political choice. Is an open field by a political decision to let it open. And in this way, we can imagine that urban commons can be posed in the schema of an artificial common pool resource. But we have to remember the second point, that is not only the barrier, so here the barrier is destroyed, it's not destroyed, but is less barrier because it's the political choice to open, but is the problem of alternative and joint use. And here comes also the reason that in the social movement all around the world we are speaking about this as urban commons, because the role of social movement a lot of time, not always obviously, is the challenge and also the kind of motivation for urban commoning, and is the idea to fight all the idea, different kind of exclusion. So this idea to include is not because they want to say, all right, we want to be a common pool resource, obviously, but because the fight against exclusion is in the DNA of this kind of social movement. So what's crucial and often misunderstood is that their tendency to openness is not just an efficient or convenient strategy for the management. You have a lot of study on commons that work on this kind of cooperation, speaking about only efficiency, and it's true, a lot of this kind of cooperative are efficient, but it's not only that. In another idea, we are speaking also about experiment that face economic and legal troubles, and their decision-making system is low and not always clear, so it's not efficient. In all this kind of experience that speak about commons and urban commons, it's very, very difficult to have a decision. And so why we do that? It would not be more simpler to make an association. Rodrigo, Jean, I, and some other people here that love an idea, theoretical idea, we do an association and we manage also urban space like that. Why not do that? And this is the second part of the speech. So we don't do that because we live in a world. Let me say where is. All right, we do that. We live in a world where this idea of archipelagos and gated communities. Archipelagos is they are. For example, Agamben wrote about this, but I always do the example of Facebook or other social network. They suggest you what is your circle of affinity, your identity group, which are you closer. And this is because in this time it's very, very simple to be with people that is like you. What is difficult is to speak with people that is a little bit different from you. And this is a challenge. So let's go to another part that is there is not only Ostrom, obviously, there are also other important scholars that don't speak about common pool resource, they don't speak about commons as good, they speak about commonwealth, Negri and Art, they speak about new institution of the common, Dardot and Laval, now also Tony Negri and Michael Hart. And this is another big realm of the political science. I am not speaking about that. After, if we want, we can. We can say that from this point of view, what is important is the role of general intellect in the production of the common space. That is also an empowered concept for struggles, as we told before. That is a dimension that is neither public and neither private. But let's say that in this author, in my opinion, the common concept is very close, sometimes too much, to the idea of communism. Sometimes it's another. No, I don't want to say that it's another word to say that it's communism, but it's very, very close. And here comes probably a problem: the lack of an organizational theory and a theory of the state, that in some ideas is also one of the problems of the traditional Marxist theory. This is another big issue. We can speak after. And I would like to understand better what I'm trying to say in a concrete way. This is a quote from, I think, Multitude of Arthur Negri. And they say something that's very true. During the Seattle protest, the observer was especially buffeted by the fact that a series of groups that had always been in sharp contrast, so they do the example of trade unionists and environmentalists, religious group and anarchists, etc., acted together without any need for a unifying central structure able to subordinate their particularities or force the group to set them aside. So that was really, really true. And probably this is one of the nowadays structure. I repeat, from the European, obviously, point of view. Maybe here is different. I know something, but you can teach me better than what I can say here. But let's say that this picture, that is very powerful, that it's very true, have some problem. Try to put all these kind of people together in a single urban space, and you will not have a powerful cooperation. You will have order. You have problems. And this is the challenge, in my opinion, of urban commons. Social movement and commons, when they speak together, they engage a two-way change. You cannot do the urban anarchist commons that is all close but different with the communist, antagonist, and after there is the social democratic, and after there is the rural commons. You cannot do that. If you speak with the word of the commons, if you fight the barrier that are also internal ideological barrier of cooperation, you have to imagine open urban spaces. And this is very, very difficult, because we are speaking about open community of practices. And here you can imagine that when you put in common things, concrete things that are inside that space I showed you before, a theater or a place like this where we speak about theory, or a place outside where we want to help people that doesn't have a home. So when we do all these and we collectivize concretely the means of production that are inside, for example, there are artists that put in common the theater space. So they put in common also their expertise, purposes, irrational behavior, and passions. These also are things that we can, in another speech, put in as a critic on the tradition of the liberty of democracy and Habermasian construction, because obviously this kind of governance is based on an assembly where everyone can speak, can use dialectic to confront each other, but is also always a place where there is a high level of irrational behavior and high level of, let's say, populism. This is another buzzword, but we can speak better after. So the point is that where Hardin see the tragedy, where Ostrom see the cooperation, I see both tragedy and cooperation. And this is perfect, because this image, I think, is something that is really close, in concrete, to the state of nature, that, as we know, is so important in the construction of political theory, and not only of political theory, also of the state, also in the rising of an institution. So, if we want to take the aim at both the Leviathan and the individualistic egoism, we need to start from some topics that are very well known, from Hobbes to Hegel and Marx, the fear that arise between people where they don't have the opportunity to build a circle of trust, and their struggle for recognition that put the one against the rest. So here, the idea that we have an assembly and we decide together is exactly not because we imagine that the cooperation is simple as powerful. We know that cooperation is difficult and is an opportunity to do this kind of approach. So I will go very, very quickly here, just for make you understand in concrete what I say when I say that there are no border, because we can use also that in an ideological way, but there are many borders. So imagine a concrete example. A group of people want to discuss a book. Here I put the idea of the group, but we can imagine another concept that is a concept where we can have different ideas. Feminism. Or we can speak about homophobia. Or we can speak about populism. So we have four kind, imagine a building, we have four kind of different approach. If we imagine a commercial private, so imagine an hotel, I am asking I want to present a book that speak about the GRO, and I ask to an hotel to use the place. The hotel would say, perfect, you can use it, pay me a rent. This is the first option, governance option that we have. After we have, let's read before, no profit private approach. So you have association, cooperative, informal, collective, also a social center. That is not a common, it's a social center, it's another thing. So I want to present my book that is written about the GRO. And here, the association probably will make an evaluation and will say, all right, I will give it for free, so I'm not an hotel, but I want to read the book, or I want to see if this idea is close to mine. Because obviously, if it's not close to mine, all right, if it's a neutral idea, you can speak. But if you are speaking about the GRO, and I am an accelerationist, or I am against this because I have a old-fashioned style idea of the working class, I would say not, go out to another space, obviously. After we have the third one, so very quickly, is the public administration, the university. We want to ask the university the same place. We are searching always a place to present the book. And the university say, perfect, we can do that here. Or, for example, we use a lot in Italy the place of a city council. And there will be an administrative officer with impartial criteria, such the time, the neutrality. We say, all right, you can have this in this time. All right. This is another option. In this case, the exclusion, so in the first case, the exclusion if you don't have money. In the second case, the exclusion is, all right, if we don't want, because maybe you are not close to our idea. The third option is you are excluded because, hopefully, if you are speaking about hate speech, for example, you want to present a book that say that Shoah doesn't exist. I hope that also in Brazil now they will say, no, you cannot do that. But the exclusion is only on this border. There is not usually no other criteria. So is there a different kind of governance? Because if there is not, we are speaking about empty words. So what is trying to arise, in my opinion, in many of these kind of experiences is that here, if we propose to present the book, is there an open assembly and you will have people that are very, really close to the GRO together with people that have no idea of what the GRO is, and other people that say, all right, this is a very, very stupid thing. So the problem is how we can decide here to organize. What will happen, and that and this is important also in the legal theory, is that we are not speaking about common property. We are speaking about common use. So the property, for example, of the building is still public. A lot of time we are speaking about, as I told you, public building. But this means that there is an assembly that feel itself as the management assembly and say, I cannot exclude you to present this book. I would love to discuss with you, so I have the right to ask with you to have a question, to have a member in the panel. If you want to do this here, you have to face this kind of heterogeneity. So it's a choice. You can also do, all right, no, I go to an hotel. I don't want to speak with you. But the common in governance try to give the opportunity of the different opinion to have at least one word to speak about this kind of book. So obviously, this is a simple example. You can have something that is more complex. For example, the war in Syria. You have pro-Kurdish, you have pro-Assad regime. There are 1 year ago they were shooting themselves. It's not so simple to say, right, we do this thing in heterogeneity. So in this kind of common governance, you can do, as I told you before, 6 months of discussion, also without any outcome. So it's not efficient. Yes, perhaps if we think that the outcome is the presentation of the book, is not efficient. But if you stay in that 6 months and 20 minutes every Monday speaking about this point at the ODG, you probably see a democratic pedagogy that is rising, and people that starting to speak why we have to have this idea, why we have not to have this, and this is exactly the reason of the commoning. So here comes probably the idea why we are facing the rising of new institution. So first of all, it's a political issue. Freedom have its form, I say Murray Bookchin. Self-management is always a complex of rules, and this is Ostrom, that is not like Murray Bookchin, but they agree on that. And there is also a legal issue, and here we come to the other point. Why the legal issue? Because when we speak about there are 2 problems. The first is how we can organize politically this kind of organization. And this means how do you give yourself rules? And when we speak about rules, it's the realm of the legal. So also this is another changing, because a lot of times social movement, the legal is not the realm of something that we can do together. We cannot do self-rule together. Or if we do that, we don't write. We don't give them the picture of a normative, of a norms. This is what we try to do. We try to use all this kind of self-regulation system that the general intellect in years and years all over the world has given himself, and try to translate them in something that the legal order can also recognize. Because normally the legal order don't recognize this kind of collective use. They say, all right, do an association, please, and I can give you this building to manage. And if you don't have an association, because you are not an association, you are 20 different associations, and moreover, you are not only that 20 association, because there is the principle of the open door system. So it's not a project, but it's a process. So it's an assembly, and this is not an ideological answer. It's something that really happened. So this kind of assembly, we have to try to translate legally. But if we stop for a moment, it's not so strange, because we have always assembly to manage common things. For example, in Italy, I think that is the same here, but I don't know. When the civil code speak about common property of a building, we do the assembly of condominus. That is not a perfect example of participatory democracy, because it's founded of how part of the building you own and put the one against the rest in the main cases. But it's an assembly. But also the democratic system is the assembly of deputies in Brazil. It's an assembly of city councils. So this idea that an assembly can manage a space is normal if we imagine that the space is a state. It's possible to use this idea to manage a building. For this reason, I imagine this place like the rising of a new institution, something that can be really close to the popular assemblies that Murray Bookchin speak in one of his last book. But we can also, and this is the point, why we do that? Because, as Hannah Arendt said, there is nothing more useless than a rebellion and a liberation if they are not followed by a constitution of the newly acquired freedom. And this is the point also, a struggle inside social movement, why we have to try to give ourselves this kind of new institution. Because if you don't do that, but this is obviously my opinion we can speak about, you work with a powerful struggle, 5 years, 7 years. And after the life of the people change, because you have son, daughters, problem, all what happened in life. And we risk to lose all this general intellect. We need to try to something permanent that can also change itself, but that can be given to other. And this is why we speak about right of collective use. So let's go. This is another. We have not time for that. Just because I want to conclude, because I want to prefer to debate. Just take a look. I don't read to this definition of commoning. This is why my book is titled Non-Commons but Commoning, because I think that what is more interesting in this kind of experiences is this kind of activities. And I would like only to say something, few words about the problem of how to translate urban commoning into juridical terms. So you can have many different tools. I have no time to speak about this. Tomorrow we'll have a debate on at the law school. Let's say that the main problem that we have is how to entitle a community instead of a group of individuals this kind of buildings. This is the main question. And here comes the last field of my study that I call creative use of law. Let's go direct because we have no time. Creative use of law. I try to hack the legal proposal made by local authorities or private owner in order to help communities to generate their own regulation system, implementing or changing those which already exist. Instead of the assignment to one or more determinate legal subject, as an association, a cooperative, or what else, we can create alternative social civic bodies in which the right of use and the right to manage the good belong to the people, not only those who manage in a day-to-day basis, but also those who are outside. So you have the right of collective use of everyone and a public body that's not only an assembly, is an ecosystem of assembly, of work, of different bodies that you can imagine from practice, because these exist in reality in social movement, they give themselves. And we can use this as an ecosystem, giving the power to manage to these bodies. Right of use of everyone, direct management of the people in this self-regulation system. So, let's say that in this way, in Naples, for example, Asilo Filangieri is the last landmark cases. In this occupied building, I go there very quickly. No, after I go with some slides to show you photos. That is better. It was an occupied spaces in 2012, and I'm part of this experience, and there are many scholars like me. That's not only me. You can read about Nicola Capone, Adriano Cozzolino. After I can give you a bibliography about this, because this is an experience, also a theoretical one. So we say, all right, how we can imagine to translate this kind of governance system? And we start from something that really exists. That is, in the Italian law, civic use. Civic use is some kind of right of use that you have in common property. After I will show you another slide that I don't have here. I have another place. So you have, for example, the right of use the forest to take the wood, the right to use the forest to take hokos, come si dice? Mushrooms, and something like that. We have not the forest, we have not an open field, we have an artificial open field, that is the building, and you have the right to use the place to work as an actor, you have the right to use the means of production inside as scenography and whatever else. We set in 23 articles the regulation out how and who is entitled to use the space, how the decisions are made, who has the right to propose activities, with which guarantee bodies, because this is another point, the guarantee bodies is another big discussion among social movement, because we say it's the assembly. We need always to, in my opinion, always to use the traditional law history, the check and balance system. It cannot be only an assembly. You have to, because also an assembly can be very powerful. So we have imagined all this kind of regulation, and I'm not referring to a governmental regulation of the building, but of a new kind of communitarian public self-regulation. So community drafted their own rules of management and use, which were checked, and because you have to check what you write, and after formally recognized by public authorities as the regulation of the building. So in this way, now the collective and urban civic use has been adopted by 12 spaces in the city, around 50,000 square meters of public heritage, and in several cities, for example, now in Turin, there is another fight, and there is the claiming of the collective and urban civic use. So what I want to say, just to conclude, is that it's not only this tool. All over the world, the common land properties speak to us of different kind of institution. You have something like that in Galicia, Valencia, Montes Comunales. Very, very different experience, because in the old times, before the modern state, and I'm not here to say that was a great period, I'm not that idea, it was beautiful, no, right? But there was the problem of the border, there was the problem of the regulation, there was the problem of the market and the state, and people organized themselves. And it's very, very interesting to use this kind of common land rights and try to transfer and implement them in the urban areas, because they speak also about the idea of creating some kind of alternative authorities. So here I comes to the end. What is surprising is that many of urban commoning experiences, informal or maybe without a legal title, day by day, try to create laws from grassroots and present them to those who are supposed to do that, like public authorities. So you have, for example, in Florence, an urban area that is linked to the Semterra movement here, that have done a regulation of 20 pages and go in an occupied rural space and go to the public authority, say, all right, we want this regulation. And the public authority say, but the regulation doesn't exist. All right, tell us which is the problem to adopt technically this regulation, and we can speak. And this is a problem, because some administration, city council adopted it, other not, and we give the contradiction sometimes happened to the public authorities. So we don't are destroyed by contradiction. Contradiction a lot of times destroyed this kind of space. Remember the example. Oh, we can speak about the grow. No, we don't like the grow. This kind of contradiction destroy a lot of time this kind of experience. No, now they try to be a point of powerness, and the contradiction is of the authority, because in Naples you do that, maybe in Turin, maybe in Alghero, maybe in Montevideo. I'm now working with in Montevideo with Intendencia, some kind of feminist movement experience. After we can speak about how is feminist, this kind of approach, this is really close to intersectionality, the commoning, but after we can speak better. So, this kind of contradiction is now of the public authority. And this is, and here comes the challenge of grassroots soft law making in the response of the one given by the neoliberal order with Lex Mercatoria. We are doing something really close, in my opinion, to what with Lex Mercatoria or, let's say, legal standard and other stuff like this, corporations do. They create rules and they propose these rules to the public authority. Say, all right, we have done that. Recognize. Obviously, it's a little bit more complex, but this is the schema. If we are able to do this kind of soft law making from the grassroots, I think that here lies the importance of such small experiment. We need gyms and incubators for democracy as form of life, from which we can rise the alternative institution. Alternative institution that we need behind the state or market. Let's say, before being the solution, democracy is still the problem, and so that's the point, that we cannot use this word. All right, we put everywhere participation as the solution. Participation, if you do that, is really a trouble. But this is the reason that we face with this trouble, because the idea of how different people, heterogeneous people, can manage together common resource is, let's say, the real core of the problem of democracy. And so this is the way why I speak about common in this way. Thank you very much.
Obrigado, Giuseppe. Vamos abrir então agora para perguntas. Se vocês tiverem que fazer pergunta em português, a gente dá um jeito do Giuseppe entender. Então está aberto. Você não quer só vir até aqui? Porque como grava... Se você puder. Scusi. Sim, por favor.
Então, tudo bem. Oh, thank you for the presentation, Giuseppe. I think I have a question more theoretical than empirical. It's about coming back to the original concept of common pool resource. Actually, in the Harding's and Ostrom's mind, the idea is you have just one sort of user targeting just one natural resource. So I think it's more simple when you compare with the urban commons, because it's the same user looking at the just one natural resource. The concept of urban common, as you explained it in the case of urban buildings in Naples, you have different sort of users looking at different ways of use the building. Yeah, I think it's a theoretical challenge for the concept of common pool resource, because I'm not sure if the outcome is it's a democratic collective decision-making process. I'm not sure about this, because the incentives for each user is different. The transaction costs involved is different, because you have different purposes looking at the urban common, the building. So in my mind, I start with the same point of view, but I'm not sure if the outcome is the same. Just it. Thank you.
Alguém mais?
If there is another, because I answer with a slide. I have only to find it. Thank you very much. I traveled this morning. Thank you very much. Yes, this is a point. And another point connected to this is the idea of community in Ostrom theory is an homogeneous community. That is linked to what you do. And I am speaking about heterogeneous community. I totally agree on that. In fact, maybe I don't explain myself better. I am not present myself as a Ostrom scholar, perfect Ostrom scholar. But that's okay. Some scholar of them said, I can do that, I can say that, so I'm going to do. The point is that, first of all, it's real that you have an homogeneous community also in a land and natural resource. In fact, you can have different kind of use. But here in urban commons, you can have thousands of different tools. But that's the use. That's the point. So, I agree. I am not sure too that the output is democracy. I am saying that output can be democracy. That's the point. I don't like the approach of some theorists that, I said this very quickly, that look at the pre-modern area, say, all right, in the common property there were a powerful struggle of people that manage things. Yes, it's true. But there were also the Resia and the beach and witch. So it's something complex. So the point is how this can work. Because if it's not efficient, if we are doing this because we like it, or probably no one will follow. That's the point that I think we have not to miss. For example, this is a little schema of the growing in 4 years of activities inside a place like that. But in all the places that function with an open gate system, you have an explosion of activities. Explosion of activities are really interesting because if we are looking for common, also the general intellect is a common production. For an artist that is working, for example, in his show, his writing, speaking with a philosopher, and with a musician, and after with people that live in the neighborhood, gives him a lot of ideas. And maybe gives concrete a musician to do something with. So the point is that in practice, common is very difficult. But the output is so exciting that people do that. Because not only, and not much, an ideological point of view, but because they love the output of sharing ideas. We are in a sharing age. We are not saying something different from the old sharing instrument that we have. The point is not also Facebook, but also if we want to speak about that, we can speak about Uber. We have different corporations that understand how sharing is powerful. The point is who is the subject that take value from this sharing. So here, the aim is, all right, give the output and the value to the people that is engaging in the creative sharing, the creation of the collective sharing. So this is the point. It's not and to do that we have to create rules, create how we can also exclude people, because you have to imagine a kind of exclusion. If I arrive in an assembly and I start giving punch to women or men, we have to imagine some way of kick me out. Very simple. But the point is that all these kind of questions are questions that this kind of experiences face. They pose it. And sometimes they have solutions that are really, really innovative. And I think that these solutions are not folkloristic one. Because the point, and I repeat, is this is the same kind of solution that are not the legal sentence. Imagine that in the Lex Mercatoria function. If I've written about TTIP and CETA, that are these trade agreements, and there is, but also in order, this settled dispute system, that when you have a problem, you don't go to the judge, but you go to a mediation court. So this mediation court you can do at that level. You have a mediation court in, for example, Bolivia, in a parallel judgment system of indigenous community. You can have here parallel system of mediation. We are in the age of this mediation. We are doing something that is also in the neoliberal framework. We have to know that. But we can give it an alternative view. So it's not a story that go to ends in only one way, but sometimes happen.
Thank you, Giuseppe. It was very illuminating for me. I'm studying 2 art squads here in São Paulo, and I'm very interested about the translation that you mentioned. How do you translate all these practices to a legal form? It's very difficult because sometimes they use the same terms to refer to different things when you go to the legal level. And that almost kills the whole process that breed that. I would like to ask you to talk more about the cases in Italy, where the social centers were recognized by the government, and how that went after that. And the ones that were not recognized also.
This is a presentation of another comrade, scholar, Maria Francesca De Tullio. We share our presentation also because I didn't create this governance system. We are many and we always change. So. I am looking where is it, because appunto non è la mia, maybe it's another one. If we have internet, it's perfect, because I go directly to internet. Appunto. Okay. I say first what to answer to your question. What I have done now, a las pioneras, that is this future feminist space in the city of Montevideo. In the city of Montevideo, and many of them are feminist theorists, so they have also some kind of real important critiques about the legal realm. We can speak also about that after. And it was very difficult to understand how we can create a legal framework. How can we do that? And they, at the beginning, said, Giuseppe, you know, you are a lawyer. Also, if you do the political philosopher, you are able to do that things. I say, no, I don't agree. And I send them this. I hope it's here. Where is it? CV. It's not here. Mert. No, forse sì. Corso Italia report. Okay, I have to go to the caspito of. Can I go to Gmail and after entering mine? Yes. Okay. Give me only 1 second, please, because I think that is also in Espanol. Logout. Okay. But just to say is, I give them a questionnaire. That is not the questionnaire that we do a lot of time in sociology. So I didn't do that because I want to collect information. I do that because I want to ecco qua. Come se vabbè, credo che si faccia così. Ok, perfetto. And this, okay, se vabbè, buonanotte, fa niente. That's okay, I explain. These were 3 pages where the question were, who are you, who want to use this space? To do what? But what happens if someone want to enter here and is not a woman? Because they started to say, this is the place of groups, only a word, a space of groups of collective of women. So, groups, not single person. Collective, there are here. Woman. So, what happened to a man that say I am a feminist, or for example, a fluid gender? What happened? One word are many, many things. And what we start to say is, all right, write your answer to this question. Because this is the starting level of all of the law creation. You have to pose question to how you want to work, how you want to set up your organization, and how you want to solve your problem. So I give you this another idea that is linked to NEP. And this is the first step in La Pioneras. And after they have done that, they have spoken a lot. They thought they were agreed, they were not. Because there was the first time that they when you have to write it, you have to also to decide, all right, are we acting this way? No, stop a moment, I not agree. And you speak and speak and speak. It's perfect. It's what we are trying to do. And after, at the end, someone can help you to translate this in a little bit a juridical word, but it's not so important. It's important if you want a recognition from the institution. Tomorrow we can do this kind of communication system also with poetry, also with picture, whatever else. The law is a language. So the last example in Naples, there are 23 articles. So the first one is what is collective and urban use. Another one is who can decide. It's not the first person that entered in the from there, because it's not that. If someone want to enter and want only to sabotare, come si dice? Sabotage, sabota the process, for example. So you have different status of participation. That is not like I want to be part. No, you have only to attempt to 3 assembly, and at the 4th one you are inside. But if, and there is also a guarantee body, what happens is someone that is entering is fascist, because like Hannah Arendt say, all the communities have, also the constitution, have insider and outsider. So for example, there are 3 principal rules that are anti-fascism, anti-sexism, and anti-racism. So you have all of this, and after you can become a full status member. But when you have the right to enter, everyone, to propose, and you are an host member, or you are the guy that enter for the show, and you are a user. All these different pictures are written. In concrete, this is not very bureaucratic, because in concrete we forget how many assembly. It's something more fluid, so it's not a condominium. But it's important because, and this is the point, this kind of solution, probably a lot of time we forget. And this approach is to start from question, what we do if, what happened if, and try solution. So there are 23 articles that are legally written, but they started as questions that were not legal, were question of how to do things together, because as was said before, it's not simple that you do this and the output is democracy. I don't know if I answered to your question, or there was something. It was more like the recognition with the city council. Yeah. Right. Sorry. The recognition, very quickly. It starting at the beginning with a fight, because this was an occupation. The city council of Naples and his mayor, De Magistris, was elected using the word commons, because there was a battle for the water as common good, and a referendum with the 27 million people that say yes, water is a common good. And so when there was this occupation, there was the problem. All right, we agree, it's a common good. So how we can manage? And the answer at the beginning was, okay, do an association and we give you the building. No, because, and this was the point, at the beginning, the people that occupied this building were workers of art and culture, said, this is what always happens when there is a new mayor. That if I am near the new mayor will give me public cultural spaces to do the culture, the official culture. We don't want that. We want to imagine an open governance system. So we start to thinking how to do, and we, as I told you before, imagine to use this new kind of instrument. And after 3 years of struggle, and there are I can speak that about. I wrote about that. Also, other friend I wrote. I can give you bibliography. We go to the administration. We say, all right, these are the rules that we are written. What you want to do? Because if you want to create this new legal recognition, you have to act now. And at that moment, with Carmine Episcopo and the other people that work in the administration, we start to confront with the administrative official, and that was very, very important, because a lot of times things cannot be translated legally because there are rules that are really difficult for the official administrator to take, because there is a responsibility of public authorities. If you do a squat, all right, you do a squat. I don't know what you do, I'm not responsible. If I know what you do and I recognize what you do, I am responsible about that. So we start, and also there they pose to us a lot of problems. What happens if there is a fire? How we can share responsibility in this case? What happened in this other case? And we try to set up solution in every one of these problems. And so we have now, let's say, an act that is written by the commoners, that is recognized by the public authority, with another act that is done by the public authority. In fact, we have done that together, but it's formally done by the public authority. Let's say, all right, we use the regulation done by the commoners in this way as the rule, the user rule of the space. You have this kind of rules also in a garden, in a public garden. So you can enter in a public garden. You don't know maybe that, but there are some rules are written. So in this case, the rules are made by people that use that place and know that. So in this case, the mayor, after 2 years, have the brave, was very courageous to make this possible. And obviously there was not an alliance, not an electoral alliance. There are people in this kind of place that vote for the mayor, other people that don't vote for the mayor. And no one asked them to vote for this or the other. It was an alliance on the point. And we have also other example. But it's very, very difficult because in the legal framework you have always this problem of who is responsible, as it's very difficult to imagine some kind of sharing of responsibilities. We have some solution about that are very technical, and after we can speak. But the point was always the same, starting from the problems, because we have automatic answer in the legal framework. And we forgot the question. If we start from the question, we can imagine other answer. Grazie a voi. Nice to meet you.
For a while.
Great. This
I've heard about
that was here the day. I haven't the time to speak a lot. And the day that for us was very important because there was a presentation of his book, and the mayor arrived in the last year of this, the third year of this struggle. And I started say, all right, mayor, you are in this place. You say that you are happy to listen to that door. Perfect. But we have written this, and there are 3 years that you have done it. Okay, no, okay, and we start. Say, no, because we have, and that was a moment of shift from, because he was there, he was laughing. It was a shift moment because he realized, and after he had done, that we were not joking. So the legal recognition, I also always this example. Imagine about homosexuality. Sometimes also the right wing say, all right, you can do whatever you want. I'm liberal. But don't ask for recognition. Tolerance is not accomplished. Not always. When we are in a legal framework and we say, we are in a collective use, there is not an association. Why we have to do the association? Oh, we want to make more people that use this. Is how we really act. Because why is not possible? So, and we ask for legal recognition. This is, I think, something that is more powerful.
Yes.
Because it's there that you give troubles to the Europe.
Yes. So, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Thank you very much for staying all the time. Giuseppe,
Mateus.
which kind of spaces you are engaged in here?
There are 2 art squads. One is a historical building. The other one is another public building that was an administration building, but it's 13 floors. It's huge,
Great.
and all the residents are artists in both of them.
We are really close about it. But it's possible to, is there something this evening? In one of the two? Do a show or something like that? We can go to take a beer with
Maybe in Casa Amarela.
also tomorrow. We can share a number.
Yeah, sure.
And because one other thing that for us is important is to share content.
Yes.
someone of you come in this kind of spaces that is not only Naples, in Turin, Milan, everywhere.
Yeah, I'm reading a lot of...
And some of them will go and, oh, we do a webinar conference together, something, or artistic project about that. It would be great.
Yeah, sure. Yes.
Oh, I give you my card, and you write me your name, and I can use WhatsApp. And also now, if there are, I am here until Saturday morning. If there is some activity in the evening, because we are there, to take a beer, to know each other, we come together. Let's check it. Thank you for you guys. Sorry, I missed your question. There are many things.
Yeah, it's very difficult. Now they are doing like this. The government asked them to become an association, and don't have much to do. It's like a trap. You're either institutionalized or you got evicted. So it's very difficult. It's like they've been there for like 5 years.
If you want, we can work together on that. I have also to come back to Montevideo, Uruguay, so I can, next time with our comrade come back here, we can work on the fight together. Let's do that. But really, write me. Write me your name. Mateus, Giuseppe. Mateus, so let us know. Mateus will see if this night or tomorrow, maybe probably, there is one of these two artistic occupied space we can go to.
Eu tinha pensado em levar ele no ouvidor também, né? Eu estava falando pro pessoal, só que a gente está vendo, meia tarde talvez a gente vá na casa do povo, de repente dá para fazer a gente estava pensando até fazer um papo com ele amanhã na casa do povo, de repente se tiverem assim, então um papo. Seria interessante, eu estava procurando ontem, a galera que está com o coletivo de artistas lá, né, que está fazendo o almoço também. É foda, né? O ideal seria ficar com ele uns 3 dias. Do rola, né?
Oh, how it was?
Great.
Sorry for the slide at the end, because in my opinion, I arrived to Ragosa and I finished the two cancer, and I didn't have time.
No, that's fun. What's the reason?
Sorry.
Really good.
Always when I speak English, I looked at it was understood. My accent like one of the sopranos.
We can try to speak a sort of Portuguese mix between Portuguese and Italian, and we can try.
It's beautiful. We can do it tomorrow. Is there some problem? No.